The genesis of the Gardens of Stone books goes back to the book that Brian and I worked on the Upper Gross Valley. And in that we managed to isolate a number of different factors of things. We started off with the geology, and then the geomorphology, and then the plants, and then the animals, and then the maps, and then the Aboriginal history.
That's right, we set the format.
It's a format. And when we came to the Gardens of Stone and we realised how big it was, I think we started off with, 3 books?
I think so. We certainly had no idea that it was going to be as big as what it was. Well, it still is.
And growing. And now we're up to plan 9 books. You came in...
Well, we were just beginning book 1, so I came at the right time.
You did?
Yeah. So I was there at the right time to get really excited.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's because and that was before the coal mining was a really big issue.
No, there was only pressure, but it wasn't as aggressive as it is now.
No.
So if you don't tell anyone, no one will go there and the place will be preserved. Unfortunately, it's no longer true. And the main conservation bodies, like Geelong Foundation of Blue Mountains Conservation Society, the Conservation Foundation, don't subscribe to that theory anymore. If you don't publish, if you don't let people know about them, if you don't name these places will go to the coal mining or other offenders.
But you go to a place like, I'm thinking of Dicksonia Forest Ravine, which is one of the most special places. It's unprotected, and it has these ancient tree ferns and it's got an atmosphere about it which is so special. It didn't have a name, and one of the reasons we allocated a name was that it means something to give something a name. We can give it some 6 figures, which you can find on a map, but it has no meaning. It has no soul. But when you give it a name, it's got a soul.
It builds emotional connection between place and people, and when you have established the emotional connection between places and people, you can protect these places, because people start to care. People would care about the Dicksonia Forest Ravine, or the Temple of Doom, or the Lost Ark Point, or the Point Green.
Yes.
Rather than saying, there's just some sort of outcrop there, or some few tree ferns. So it's all about building those connections in people's minds, and in our own minds as well.
Adrenaline Gorge or Endorphin Point, these are places with huge emotional content, and you couldn't destroy those.
And conversely, the mining industry calls all of this overburden. So they want to dehumanize in the environment.
And of course the other thing is, we never started off to be, well, I didn't anyway, to be an activist in the conservation field. But because of the pressures of government wanting to force the coal industry to expand, for want of a better term, we've become involved in defending our turf, protecting the area, because we realise once mining takes place, it's all gone. Sand mining, for example, there's nothing. It's just a desert, literally. Coal mining, the pollution, the destruction, the consequential effects. This really gives our work a value way beyond what we originally intended.
Totally.
Part of it's being our exploratory walking, where we're seeing firsthand
things that no one else
cracks
can.
in the ground, and and you can write these submissions and whatnot, and people who've never been there, they've got no idea that these cracks in the ground, for example, that we can stand in them. They're so wide and so deep.
Like that laughable proposal that one of the coal mining companies had about rebuilding pagodas. I mean, really, it takes millions of years to grow a pagoda.
That's it.
They put it in their proposals, and people from the city who have never seen a pagoda in their life, would say, probably
rebuild
them.
And what that means for the environment, the loss of water, which means a loss of species, and all sorts of knock-on effects that are unforeseen. And people who think in purely economic terms really don't understand what's happening to our world that we live in.
But the other thing is that most of the decisions are made by people who have never been out there. So we were able, be it through books or be it through talks, share this information with so many other people.
You and I have both appeared before commissions of inquiry, and you know we know from first-hand experience what is out there.
Yeah,
what is out there?
stake?
What's at risk?
And it's very sad when we hear that the end result from the politicians coming back with their submission, where they're saying the economic gain outweighs the environmental impact.
The Gardens of Stone and most of the Wollamai is a dry area, so water is an issue.
It's a huge issue.
And so when underground coal mining seeps the water from it or introduces pollutants into it, so the very little water that is in the system, it has catastrophic effects.
I mean, some of these effects take decades to show up too. Where you've got big stand of trees that depended on underwater supply, and you take that supply away, it takes a long time for the trees to die. Swamps are more obvious because they're very shallow by nature, but and once these big trees are gone, they're gone.
Yeah, and the other thing is, like, once the pollutants are in the water, it takes 100 years or more for the balance to be restored, if ever.
Because most of the area that we walk is virtually the headwaters of the major rivers.
You've got 4 major rivers that drain from the Nunes Plateau.
That's right, the Wog and the Carn. And of course, if you're upsetting the headwaters at the very start, then obviously it's not going to get better downstream. It's just going to propagate the problem as you go down.
About 3/4 of the Gardens of Stone region is actually unprotected, not a national park. They're all subject to mining, be it open cut or underground.
But you know, I almost feel like a protective parent now. We're looking after this.
Well, I always wonder, why should the bushwalkers protect the environment? Why couldn't politicians do it? Others, like, it sort of falls on bushwalkers.
Trees do not vote.
I suppose
it's as simple as that.
It's just it's inherently unfair.
Of course it is.
Because the bushwalkers don't have the resources.